CURES is sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.
Helping you lead a healthier life. This is CARES Cures.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kara Sundlin. Welcome to the CARES Cures Show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness from credible sources. And we're talking about the keys to creating a close family so that your kids actually want to have a relationship with you when they're grown. Turns out there are 7 principles that can make that more of a reality. And Dr. Laura Saunders is a child psychologist at Hartford Healthcare's Institute of Living, and she is joining us to explain, to give us the cheat code. Thanks, Doctor, for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Kara.
I think all parents want this, or most of us do. You have kids and you think, I want them to like me when they're older. And you say that there are actually some intentional things we need to think about doing that make that a lot more likely.
Yeah, of course. I mean, every parent hopes that their child will grow up and still want to have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
But really, the close bonds don't happen by accident. They're built through small, everyday interactions or changes that we make in how we relate to our children, our teens, or our young adults.
Yeah. And so there's 7 things that you say it's important to start doing early on. And I want to preface that if you haven't done all these correctly, it doesn't mean your kids aren't going to like you. You always say the repair matters more, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't want anyone to lose hope. Number 1, each new day, we're given opportunities to make some changes in how we relate to the people around us, especially our children. And by children, I sometimes, they're teens or young adults or adults. But we always have an ability to start to make some changes in how we relate to them. And we're given those opportunities every day.
Okay, so number 1 of the 7 things, let them know their feelings matter. Young people need to feel safe and comfortable with their feelings and sharing them.
Yes, and I think this does start younger. So, when they hear, oh, it's not a big deal, or that you're fine, they start kind of believing that their feelings aren't important and eventually may stop sharing. So instead of really dismissing emotions, I want, parents to work on acknowledging them. Now, acknowledging them doesn't necessarily mean giving into them. When your child comes to you in the morning, they say, oh, I have such a bad stomach ache, I want to stay home from school. You don't necessarily say, I'm sorry to hear you have a stomach ache. Go ahead, back up to your room and you can take the day off, right? So I'm not saying that we give in to everything. I'm saying to acknowledge and validate, right? I don't want pasta for dinner tonight. I'm sorry that you don't want pasta for dinner. That's what I've made. And, I hope that you can at least have a few bites, right? So you can acknowledge things and you can validate how someone's feeling, but that doesn't always mean giving in to them.
Okay. So, but saying sometimes, I want to take a little deeper dive on this is, let's say you have a child who tends to be pretty emotional, or their emotional reactions are pretty big, and you're like, it's okay. This is not that big a deal. You're fine. So that's wrong when you're trying to calm them down? How would you do it better?
No, I think, right. So we all either have or know those kids who have very big emotions, right? They don't just express things in small ways. They express things in big, sometimes explosive ways. And so in those situations, it's about sort of giving them some space. You're not going to talk them out of it in that moment. But it's like, okay, when you're feeling calmer or able to talk about this more, let me know, and then we'll circle back. Or I'm going to give you some space right now because I can't understand anything you're saying. You're screaming, you're throwing your body on the floor, whatever. You're doing a lot of validating. You're also describing and observing. And so you can do that but when they're in a state of less emotional arousal, right? Very little productive happens for anyone, for adults or children, when you're in a high state of emotional arousal. Kids are not really listening to your words when you're yelling at them. They're hearing your tone, right? And that can create some fear, or it just creates a higher level of emotional arousal in them. And now you're both going at it. So very little productive happens when your arousal level's high. But it's a different situation when you've had some time and space to collect yourself and then come back.
Yeah. The tone's so important. I definitely have heard my kids say, don't yell at me. And I'm like, I'm not yelling, I'm whispering.
Right.
But the tone is like, to them, you're yelling, even if you're whispering.
Right.
So, okay, so tone matters, and letting them know that they're safe. But I think I read, and this is appropriate here, that all feelings are welcome, but not all behavior is welcome.
Right. I mean, all feelings are welcome. You're upset, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're disappointed. Sure. I mean, I can hear that. I can say, well, I might be disappointed in that situation also, right? I can accept and acknowledge and validate those feelings, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can just act in whatever manner you want to act in.
All right, this next one is important. I think a lot of us who grew up maybe a generation ago would have not. Our parents didn't read this book, but you say choose connection over control. Parenting based on fear, punishment, or constant correction creates distance. It is not the way to stay close.
Right. So I actually designate the difference between punishment and consequences, right? So most kids need consequences. Consequences are meant to teach you what the boundaries are, teach you that when A happens, B follows. Consequences are meant to teach. Punishment is meant to create obedience. And as a general rule, when you're looking to punish your child and create an obedient and or fearful situation or dynamic in the relationship, it breeds underlying resentment. So they might act appropriately in the moment. It doesn't necessarily they've learned about what is good or bad in a given situation, but it breeds underlying resentment. So the more you try to create fear or constant correction, it really just creates emotional distance and a lot of underlying sort of feelings of revenge and distance.
Interesting. So you say really we want to prioritize building trust, and it happens not in these grand moments, but little moments, just laughing, listening without judgment, that we really want to show empathy.
Right. It's just, we have so many common experiences, especially when your kids are younger. It's a little harder when they're older because you feel like it's more compact and they also want to do things outside the house, which is developmentally appropriate. We want to create these bonding moments. I love riding in a car together or sharing a meal together. When you have teens and young adults, you take them out to get something to eat, or you get some takeout and you have it together, creating some of those moments where, you just share something about your day. Maybe that leaves some emotional space for them to share something about their day. So you're looking for that connection or points of connection.
All right, and next is giving them a voice in their own life. I know we all want to direct, we all think we have the answers as parents, but you say instead of deciding for them, ask, what do you think? What feels right to you?
Right. So, it's important when you do the underlying work of parenting that you truly understand kind of what your motives are, right? Am I trying to create a mini me, or am I trying to create or allow a person to develop with their own interests, ideas, values, and opinions, right? So giving them a voice. I always say I played team sports. I wanted my kids to play team sports, but actually they both sort of went towards individualized sports, right? Dance and cross country and track and things that were more individualized. And so I tried to shove that mold on them, but I read the writing and there was a lot of resistance. So it was then sort of regrouping and then saying, okay, well, what do you want to do? What's going to work for you? And then making some shifts. So I was choosing, trying to be connected over controlling them and controlling what some of their experiences were going to be.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I certainly have said that to my kids too. You need to be on a team sport. It's how you learn how to deal with and I was never a huge athlete, but it's all that was available was team sports at school. And, my daughter chose dance. She's like, if I'm going to be on a team, can I just be on a dance team? So ideally we don't have to force. Even sometimes we have good intentions when we're forcing, like, oh, I really don't think that's a good class to take, or that's not a good major. Like, how are you ever going to get to work with that? All of that. What's the line there? Because sometimes we do have wisdom, or maybe they're choosing something and we think this isn't wise in the long run.
Right. And I'm talking about developmentally appropriate small choices, right? Taking, you think your child would be interested in woodworking, but they want to take a, sewing class as an elective in high school. I mean, that's a very kind of low cost choice to make, and they could get into it and they could realize that they hated it, right? But you still have to finish the semester, so you still have to have that learning experience. So it's giving them voice in some of their choices. And again, we're not talking about safety issues. We're not talking about big things. We're talking about small, developmentally appropriate choices, the kinds of activities they want to do, the kind of people they want to hang out, what they want their interest to be or their activities. So giving them a voice in some of that, I think, is really important and helping them find who they are on the inside.
Okay, and this is a big one. We need to own our mistakes. And that doesn't mean we're losing control. It doesn't mean that we are giving in. But when we model that I really didn't mean to yell at you, or I made a mistake, I was stressed out, or any times we correct ourselves, that is a good thing.
Right. We as parents want respect, right? And respect is actually something that you model, right? So it's you model respect. And one of the ways that you show respect is by taking appropriate responsibility for your behavior. So I lost control this morning. I was overtired and I was really upset, and I apologize that I apologize. I apologize for my behavior this morning, right? So I'm not saying, you can run the household on your own, right? I'm saying I acknowledge that I did something, and I take responsibility, and I model that I'm apologizing for it. So I think, that's an overlooked quality sometimes in parents, that they think that they have to be, this figure up here who doesn't make mistakes, when in fact you're modeling owning responsibility for your behavior.
Yeah, you say it actually teaches kids that respect goes both ways. And the science shows that if kids are raised in homes where accountability is the norm, meaning I also say I made a mistake, that they then don't fear making mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, what's the helicopter parent or the lawnmower parent, or the, that you mow down any obstacles in their path. If children don't make mistakes, they don't learn. I mean, I'm sure, you and I have talked about this. Some of the greatest lessons I've learned in my life were over some significant mistakes that I made. Again, not big safety issues, but choices that I made where it just didn't work out for me. And then I had to kind of own it and say that was not a good choice on my part, right? And so those are our greatest learning experiences. So I want my kids to be able to make some mistakes. So that means stepping back. So a big area of this is parents who are hyper vigilant and monitoring their child's, school assignments, right? You missed an assignment today. I mean, it's if your child has special needs, then yes, you might need to be a little bit more involved. But especially as they get older, and freshman year through senior year in high school, you shouldn't be checking their every single assignment in junior and senior year. By that point, they should be monitoring a lot of that on their own. Again, unless they have some special circumstances, because I'll tell you, when they go to college, you're going to have zero ability to monitor anything, and they really are going to have to just take care of it on their own.
I mean, this sounds crazy, but I know parents who will sometimes help the kids out and write the paper for them.
Right. Well, here's the reality. There's Chat GPT to do some of that now.
Yeah.
But I don't need to go off on that whole diatribe about
but we shouldn't be doing that.
concerns about that.
Right. We shouldn't be doing that.
But yes, I mean, again, that's no. Sometimes, your child, we've all had this experience where your child came to you late at night saying, I need A, B, and C for a project due tomorrow morning. And you just sort of put your head in your hand and you say, fine, I'll take you to Target, and we'll get those items. Okay. So I'm not saying you're totally abandoning them and their needs, but you're also then not doing it for them. And then, so finding opportunities to let them make some decisions, if it's a pattern of behavior, if every single time they have something due, they're coming to you at midnight saying they're missing all the pieces, now it's a pattern, and now I want to address it. in a different kind of a way. But really having some opportunities where they make some mistakes and then have to deal with the consequences is really the best way for them to learn.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, hear from one of our sponsors. We're going to come back and talk about how we can make quality time, even though we're all stressed with not having enough time, but how it can really make a difference. First, let's listen to this.
Struggling with gambling? Wheeler Health's Better Choice program offers personalized support and treatment to help you regain control. Visit wheelerhealth.org to learn more and take the first step towards recovery today.
All right, we're back with CURES. We're talking about 7 steps to create a close-knit family so that your children will actually like you when they're older and they can make choices. You maybe want them to come home to your house for Thanksgiving, Christmas, share your grandchildren with you. We're talking about the 7 steps. We're on number 5 with Dr. Laura Saunders, psychologist at the Institute of Living. And number 5 is making quality time together a daily habit. And it doesn't have to be big or grand or Instagram worthy. It's really, you say, these little moments that add up.
Yeah, it really is about quality, not quantity, right? You don't have to take your family on these massive trips and spend lots of money. So it's really the little things. It's driving in the car and saying, let's get ice cream. We haven't had ice cream in a couple of weeks, and it's knowing that you both love ice cream or you both love a particular flavor of ice cream. It's the little things that you do to create some small traditions, to build similar interests. It's in the little conversations. It's driving the car and, just being quiet and just waiting for your child maybe to share something about their day. They don't always do well when they're grilled with a lot of questions. So it's really, those connections are created through the smaller, more consistent moments, as opposed to large chunks of time together.
And you said it's really making your child feel like they're prioritized. I mean, as a working mom, I think, like, I share that with a lot of folks. You have guilt. Oh gosh, do your kids think your job comes first or whatever? But it doesn't mean that you have to spend every waking moment together. It's more, I guess, how you're making them feel, and these small things that you do, little routines, will help them stay close to you even later in life.
Yeah, it really is the small things. It's the ways that you show that they're a priority. It may be that you come home and you're exhausted and you say, listen, I just need 10 minutes to gather my energy or change into my house clothes, whatever it is. And then I will play a game with you, or then I'll sit and talk with you, or then I'll help you a little bit with your homework, or, so you have to show some amount of prioritizing them and time with them. And it doesn't have to be every moment, but it is that effort. I always say the greatest gifts that we give our children are our time and attention. But it doesn't have to be massive amounts of time and attention, but it is making them a priority.
And how important is routine? I mean, I've read that if you eat dinner together, which I know is hard for some families, but even a few times a week, or you have a little thing that maybe on Wednesdays after practice you get takeout or get ice cream, or these little daily routines really make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's those kinds of things that it makes it feel more special, or it creates a sense of, as you said, routine, and it gives both of you something to look forward to, and it just creates those special bonds.
Okay, and so as we get to point number 6 now, it's letting your child, your teen, your young adult, be themselves without any judgment. What do you mean by that?
So, again, part of the self-examination process in parenting that is a lifelong process is really, not comparing your child to yourself or your own, not comparing your children to each other like, well, your sister never does it like that. But really letting them be themselves, letting them, not working on judging them or trying to make them fit into a small compartmentalized box. It's giving them opportunities to be creative or be who they are, accept themselves. And that really starts with how you respond to them and how you respond to their differences.
Yeah, so we don't want to be always pointing out the flaws. I know we've all done this. Like, I was thinking a couple days ago, my son really wants to focus on doing well. He's a junior in high school. And I go in and he's scrolling on his phone after he said he had so much homework to do. And I'm like, come on, you know, you got to do this, you got to do that. Did you make a list? Did you lay out your stuff? Like I'm going, you know, I'm sure at this point he's like, And so he's not the most organized kid. You want us to celebrate their uniqueness, encourage their interest, even if it doesn't align with your expectations. But in a moment like that where you're thinking, okay, you should be doing A, B, and C, what do you want us to do?
Right. And I think it's okay to give that guidance, right? I mean, you know our children, and you know, which of your children needs a little bit more of a push, and you know which of your kids, they just tend to structure themselves and take care of it on their own. So I'm not saying we can't give a little push or a boost, but if you're hovering over them and saying, you're so lazy, you're doing, like, you see how like it would be so easy. I just even get into like the finger pointing, right? Like you just, that critical side of you, and because you're frustrated, right? We want what's best for our kids, but you know that they tend to be distracted and with poor attention, or, a little disorganized, and you want to get on them, but it's trying to take that deep breath, and maybe you say it once or tops twice, but then you're backing off saying, all right, well, I guess you're going to see what it's like if you really want to get this work done, and it's 10 o'clock and you haven't done any work, right? Then you're going to feel the pressure.
Okay. So that's where we have to surrender to the consequences.
Right.
Okay.
The natural consequences.
Right. The natural consequences versus if you don't do this by the next time I come in, you're grounded or something. Like, I mean, I guess as they're getting older, you're trying to tell them it's going to be a rough night for you if you don't get this started.
Right. And then it doesn't mean that, they mismanage their time and then they're up too late. I mean, they still need to get up for school the next day, just like we need to get up for work. I mean, these are life skills that people are learning. So when I stay up too late, which I do too often, I then have to like resign myself to being tired the next day, and then saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to get myself to bed a little bit earlier, right? It's that correction, but that correction is not because someone told me to do it. It's because I learned it and I felt it myself.
Okay. All right. So that requires a little patience while they learn. Number 7, we want to protect the relationship over being right. I'm so right that child should not be scrolling. I am so right that you should lay out your stuff the night before. I also was not that organized kid when I was 16, so I probably had to learn on my own. But I guess what you're saying is, even though we are like that whole, the minute we're finger pointing and always having to be right and critical, we're damaging the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole, I told you so. Like, I told you were going to be tired today if you stayed up too late. I told, and that kind of constant criticism, like I was right and you were wrong. See, I told you I have so much wisdom, right? No one likes that. No one learns from that. No one appreciates that. That doesn't build a connection. It just really creates a lot of underlying resentment. And again, I'm not talking about letting your kids do whatever the heck they want. Our young people need guidance and structure and support and boundaries. But it's not trying to always be right and always be the one that knew better, because no one likes the know-it-all.
So remembering, no one likes to know it all, right? No one. I might be guilty of that sometimes, but choosing connection over correction. That's a good way to remember it. So in our last less than 5 minutes together, how do you make sure, or can you make sure, that siblings stay close? We're talking about parents, but a lot of us want our kids to stay close as they grow older too.
I think that's a little trickier. It has a lot to do with the disposition of the kids and whether or not they have similar interests. It also has a lot to do with the modeling in your relationship, how you model solving conflict, and how much you value working together. I also think age is a factor, right? Sometimes you have kids that are awkward ages, meaning like certain year, like 5 or 6 years apart. It's a big difference from a 10 and a 15-year-old. That's a really huge difference. They might not have a lot in common. A 22 and a 27-year-old, that's actually not as much of a gap, even though it's still 5 years. So you realize that developmentally, you're trying to create a foundation of shared experiences, mutual trust, and mutual caring, and that's how you build those relationships. But they don't always happen in the moment. You're setting the foundation for long-term growth.
Yeah. And this is something that I think a lot of people are going through. 60% of people are getting divorced now. A lot of people know I wrote a book called Finding Dad. I didn't grow up with my biological father, but we became very close. And it was because I really was able to forgive and say, we're going to like start from here and look to see how you do ahead rather than back, because back you're going to be in trouble. But I got that nice relationship, and I'm thinking about that as I just celebrated being inducted into the Hall of Fame for the broadcasters last night, that I had 3 brothers at the table that I wouldn't have had we not taken that journey. So as we go forward and we're thinking about maybe you've gotten divorced, or maybe you weren't that involved as you should have been, it's never too late.
It's never too late. And we just went over 7 different things. Choose one thing, right? Choose the fact that you want to create more moments for connection, or, choose the opportunity to let your child, have a little bit more of a leash and make some, non-safety mistakes. So pick one thing, start with that. I do think time and attention and prioritizing your child is a great place to start. But it's also about letting them know their feelings matter. So it's choosing one thing, starting there, not being so hard on yourself, and building a relationship over time.
A lot of what I'm reading is saying, say yes as often as you can to your kids. And I don't know if you agree with that. There was even a movie, The Yes Day. Just say yes as much as you can so that you can reserve the no for the big things. Do you agree with that?
So I don't know that I totally agree with that. I do think it is about, and I know people too, and we've all had these people in our lives. It's just like, how about we get ice cream? No. I mean, why are you saying no to that? Right? It's having the yeses and or the nos have meaning, right? So trying new things. Yeah, let's try something new. Staying up to past midnight when it's a school night, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
So, the more you can make the yeses and the nos a little bit more meaningful, and not just automatically saying yes or automatically saying no. But I think there probably are a lot of little opportunities where you can just let it go or say yes. And those are, so that you don't constantly have to be the bad guy. Gets draining.
Yeah. We don't want to be the bad guy. All right. Dr. Laura Saunders with the Institute of Living, 7 tips to start doing. Maybe I love your advice. Just choose one to create lasting connection so that your kids will want to have these long-term relationships with you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on Kara's Cures.
Thanks, Kara.
And for more information, you can always watch the Kara's Cures show streaming on WFSB Plus and the Wax. And you can listen to the Kara's Cures show on your favorite platform, wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone, and be well.
CURES, sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.